Clint Eastwood torches across decades of Hollywood glamour and rugged independence. Born May 31, 1930, in San Francisco, he rose from a modest childhood in Carmel to become one of the most revered directors and actors the industry has ever seen. Young Clinton's first taste of acting came by accident when he stumbled into an audition after an Air Force assignment in Korea and never looked back. His breakthrough role came 3 years later as the mysterious man with no name in Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns. With that lean, silent persona and steely gaze, he transformed Lazy B movies into box office sensations. The world watched as his appeal spread beyond the frontier towns of lower-budget westerns to big-city skyscrapers in Dirty Harry. Along the way, Eastwood earned the moniker of a cultural icon, but more importantly, he accrued a personal fortune that would, decades later, the bonds of every relationship he had ever forged. Eastwood's financial empire grew with every blockbuster and every Oscar-winning film. His directorial debut, Play Misty for Me, a precedent for creative control, and he never relinquished that power. Over the next half-century, he helmed dozens of award-winning dramas: Unforgiven, $1 Million Baby, Letters from Iwo Jima, and his back-end deals turned awards into astronomical paydays. Strict budgeting on his sets, profit-sharing agreements, and savvy real estate investments in Carmel, Los Angeles, and beyond padded his bottom line. By the early 2000s, Forbes listed his net worth in the low hundreds of millions, and every new project seemed to raise that bar. With multiple production companies and a penchant for blockbusters that cost pennies relative to returns, Eastwood watched his net worth swell while maintaining a low public profile on his financial life. Behind the scenes, however, the prosperity came intertwined with personal complexity. Clint married twice and fathered at least 7 known children with 5 different women. His first marriage to Maggie Johnson produced 2 children, Kyle and Allison, and ended in divorce the same year the Dollars trilogy debuted. His second marriage to the actress Dina Ruiz lasted over a decade, and they welcomed 1 daughter, Morgan. Yet long before and after these unions, Eastwood quietly had affairs, fathered secret offspring, and maintained decades-long relationships that few outsiders ever knew about. Names like Lori, Kimber, Scott, Catherine, and Francesca Eastwood appear in wills and court documents, but no public statement has ever confirmed a final, comprehensive estate plan. Uncertainty has set the stage for a dramatic inheritance battle. With his fortune estimated to exceed $300 million and growing, Eastwood reportedly shunned a single straightforward will. Instead, whispers in Tinseltown suggest he relied on a patchwork of trust funds, handwritten memoranda, and non-disclosure agreements that leave key clauses open to interpretation. His children from different marriages and relationships have competing claims. Some live in opulent estates on the Monterey Peninsula, while others struggle with fame's shadow. Emails leaked to TMZ hint at chilling family meetings where siblings traded accusations of favoritism and threats to challenge the validity of secret trusts. The prospect of what might unfold in probate court has Hollywood insiders predicting multi-year litigation and public airing of family secrets. The stakes couldn't be higher. Should Clint's secretive approach fail, his estate will enter a tangled web of litigation, potentially airing decades-old indiscretions. The grandchildren he adored on private ranches may become unwilling spectators in courtroom dramas. His business partners, longtime friends, and loyal production crews could face sudden uncertainty about profit-sharing agreements tied to his creative works. And the very communities he invested in, including Carmel's local conservation projects, might lose critical endowments or face funding delays as legal wrangling drags on. Even more poignant, this conflict stands in stark contrast to Eastwood's on-screen persona, the cool, calculating hero who always delivered justice in the end. In reality, his final masterpiece could be a testament to the chaos money can bring. Across his life, Clint Eastwood has mastered the art of control. On film sets, in directing choices, and in the bay he calls home. Yet the shadow of dispute looms large over his legacy. How he prepared for this moment remains shrouded. Whether he drafted a rock-solid estate plan sealed away from prying eyes, or whether he embraced ambiguity as a final test of loyalty. As whispers of family feuds intensify, one burning question remains: can his descendants find unity in the face of millions, or will his vast fortune become the wedge that tears them apart? The answer may redefine the man we thought we knew. A hero who, at the end of his life, became powerless in the face of questions no script could ever solve. Stay tuned, always. When news broke that Clint Eastwood had passed away at 92, Hollywood and towns fell silent. Fan pages and gossip blogs exploded with speculation about his final wishes. His children, some meeting for the first time in decades, received calls summoning them to a Santa Monica law office. The glamorous facade of premieres faded, replaced by whispers in dining rooms. Everyone wondered what would the cowboy director have left them, and would his vision survive probate's unforgiving glare? Inside Eastwood's estate files, no clear will emerged. Lawyers discovered a labyrinth of papers, handwritten notes, multiple trusts, non-disclosure agreements with banks, and fragmented deeds to ranchlands and film rights. Each trust bore ambiguous wording, such as descendants share or immediate family, with no definition for birth order or marital status. No document unified the plan. As probate attorneys studied the mess, they warned that family litigation could drag through courts for years, exposing secrets meant to remain buried. Among Eastwood's children, factions began to form immediately. Kyle and Allison, his eldest from Maggie Johnson, aligned with Dina Ruse's daughter Morgan, citing memory of their father's generosity. Meanwhile, the younger claimants, Lori, Kimber, and other offspring whose existence was publicly confirmed in recent lawsuits, banded together with accusations of exclusion. Text messages leaked between siblings revealed raw emotions, pleas for equal shares, threats of court challenges, and arguments over who deserved the most. Private reunions turned into negotiation war rooms. Inside local courthouses, attorneys prepared for a showdown. Legal teams filed motions to remove executors, demanding inventory of film profits, real estate holdings. Cameras lined the corridors, capturing terse confrontations between rival lawyers. Each hearing promised explosive revelations. Paternity tests could validate the claims of secret daughters, hidden bank statements might reveal undisclosed art purchases, and handwritten codicils could override formal trusts. Judges, aware of public interest, imposed gag orders but struggled to keep the saga behind doors. Eastwood's philanthropic work faced uncertainty. Advisors discovered that donations, earmarked for local conservation efforts, youth arts programs, and veterans' hospitals, remained tied to clauses within his trusts. If contested, funding could freeze, halting wildlife preserves and shuttering art workshops he supported. Community leaders, unaware of impending chaos, scrambled to secure interim budgets. Donor walls in civic centers stood empty without his engraved name. Local papers ran urgent editorials urging legal clarity to protect the legacies he had built over decades. Studios and production partners watched revenues from back catalog titles, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Unforgiven, $1 Million Baby, flow through Eastwood's holdings. With estate in limbo, distributors hesitated to greenlight restorations or anniversary editions. Streaming platforms paused negotiations for rights to his classic films. Licensing deals for branded merchandise stalled as legal teams demanded proof of authority. Hollywood insiders feared that, without swift resolution, years of carefully negotiated contracts could fail at the whim of an unsettled estate. Inside private estates, siblings and half-siblings exchanged bitterness in guarded phone calls. Resentments stemmed from distant relationships, fueled by Clint's choice to keep financial matters secret. Meetings devolved into acrimony over who deserved greater compensation. Family members debated whether to accept interim settlements or face trials. Advisors cautioned that a unified front might salvage goodwill, but trust had eroded. As the legal clock ticked, whispers of loyalty oaths and non-compete clauses swirled through text chains and public statements. Financial analysts mapped out Eastwood's asset matrix: vast sprawling ranches in Carmel Valley, rights to box office royalties, secret art collections, and custom vaults. Experts debated whether trusts formed decades ago could skirt inheritance taxes or face audits. Multiple limited partnerships muddled ownership. Advisors warned that unclaimed dividends and unfiled transfer documentation risked lapsing, transferring assets to state control. Each missing signature or lost ledger threatened to erode the fortune he had meticulously built over 70 years. Social media charged into the fray. Hashtags like Clint Eastwood Legacy and Fine Ho Gets the Cash trended as fans debated who truly deserved Clint's estate. Reddit threads and celebrity gossip podcasts speculated on leaked documents, fueling outrage over perceived injustices. Online petitions demanded transparent accounting, while conspiracy theories swirled about a secret fourth child hidden in plain sight. Public sentiment oscillated between sympathy for grieving heirs and scorn for wealthy litigants. The entertainment press smelled a blockbuster saga, promising exclusive scoops in issue. With probate hearings looming, insiders brace for chaos. If a codicil dated weeks before his death surfaces, siblings could claim unexpected windfalls or see new executors appointed. Or, should disputes persist, prolonged litigation may drain millions in legal fees. Fans and media alike watch with curiosity as this real-life Western unfolds in courtrooms. Ultimately, Clint Eastwood's final act may prove less about silver screen heroes and more about how his fortune reshapes his family's destiny and unforeseen revelations. As legal wrangling deepens, steps behind closed doors reveal the complexities of Eastwood's inheritance puzzle. Law firms known for high-profile estates, rivals in Beverly Hills and San Francisco, have converged on the Santa Monica office where Eastwood's papers rest locked under court seal. Attorneys scramble to decipher hand-scrawled annotations on older codicils that clash with formal trust documents drafted decades earlier. Heirs have petitioned to appoint special masters, forensic accountants are towing ledgers from silent-era royalties, and private investigators trace off the record bank transfers to offshore entities. Each new discovery only magnifies the stakes, hinting at decades of wealth patterned like a jigsaw with missing pieces. Sibling alliances fracture along uneasy lines. Kyle, Allison, and Morgan, united by memories of his public generosity, have engaged one law firm while Lori, Kimber, and other unrecognized heirs hired another. Text chains leaked online reveal whispered threats to subpoena personal diaries and claim paternity, while settlement proposals bounce back and forth beneath confidentiality clauses. Mediation sessions convene in downtown LA conference rooms, but trust shatters when someone files for injunctive relief, freezing accounts until their grievances are fully heard. Meanwhile, film historians and guild representatives scrutinize Malpaso Productions' archives. The succession of spaghetti westerns, war dramas, and gritty thrillers yielded back-end points tied to box office milestones. Yet the language in distribution agreements from the 60s lacks modern clarity, sparking disputes over whether Eastwood's estate should receive retroactive royalties from recent remasters. European distributors warn of lawsuits over license retrocessions, and streaming platforms pause deals until title ownership becomes ironclad in court. Tax attorneys have flagged dormant offshore trusts established in the Bahamas and the Isle of Man, where Eastwood placed valuable art collections, classic cars, and even a share in European vineyard real estate. Decades-old structures skirted estate taxes at the time, but IRS auditors eye them suspiciously. Should those trusts be declared domestic or invalid, heirs could face massive tax bills. Auditors insist on full disclosures, pushing the family into preemptive estate tax lawsuits to secure valuation rulings. Local charities that counted on Eastwood's quiet philanthropy now brace for funding shortfalls. The Monterey Bay Aquarium, Veterans Outreach Centers, and youth theater workshops see their promised endowments tied up in legal limbo. Grassy knolls of Carmel, once maintained by his private contributions, risk becoming overgrown. Community leaders petition courts to release emergency funds, while nonprofit boards hold breath waiting for trustees to interpret cryptic clauses before any disbursement can proceed. Industry insiders whisper that Malpaso's golden era profits, minted by minimalist budgets and Eastwood's directing efficiency, are hidden in shell entities. Crews that worked decades ago under handshake agreements now consider legal bids for unpaid profit shares. Exandria Records, a defunct label that released limited-run soundtracks, resurfaces in subpoenas demanding production data. Meanwhile, longtime collaborators, directors, cinematographers, stunt coordinators, wonder if their deferred payments rest secure or endangered by this will's unraveling. Whispers of a sudden codicil rumor have attorneys and heirs scouring calendar entries from the past decade. Some insiders claim they spotted a redacted note signed by Eastwood just weeks before his death, promising equal shares to every descendant, regardless of lineage. If genuine, addendum could empower an unconfirmed heir or invalidate existing trustee appointments. Should it surface, we might see a courtroom spectacle, sealed hearings, dramatic tearful testimonies, and a last-minute bid to rewrite Hollywood's final act. Behind closed doors, the emotional toll is palpable. Family counselors discreetly meet with siblings struggling over perceived favoritism, and the weight of publicity seeps into private therapy sessions. Insiders report sleepless nights and frayed nerves as each relative faces the paradox of mourning their father while fighting for a share of the legacy. This modern-day Western unfolds not on dusty plains, but in stark negotiation rooms where love and money clash under fluorescent lights. As tensions peak, speculation grows that some heirs may seek ousting of current executors, accusing them of hidden loyalties or financial mismanagement. Petitions circulated charge the trustee with failing to inventory art pieces reportedly stored in a private Malibu vault. Legal scholars suggest the bench may assign a neutral fiduciary to untangle conflicts, but only if siblings drop injunctive motions. Unless they reconcile, Eastwood's final dollars may be frittered away in legal bills rather than preserved as the patriarch intended. As this inheritance odyssey marches toward high-stakes hearings, one question looms larger than court filings. Can a family divided by decades of secrecy and suspicion ever honor the legacy of its patriarch? Each motion, deposition, and arbitration threatens to expose a private saga, more tangled than any silver screen drama. Audiences around the world tune in as these real-life westerns play out not in deserts, behind mahogany doors and judges' gavels, where greed, loyalty, and justice collide. On a crisp morning in downtown Los Angeles, the courthouse loomed like a fortress of marble and glass. News crews clustered at the entrance, their cameras trained on the revolving doors where Eastwood's heirs would soon appear. Siblings emerged one by one, flanked by lawyers in tailored suits, each face a mask of determination tinged with exhaustion. Flashbulbs popped as Kyle, Morgan, Allison, Lori, and Kimber made their way up the steps. In that moment, the weight of decades pressed down on them, memories of birthday parties at Carmel Ranch, phone calls demanding last-minute checks, and the echo of a father who had always valued privacy over pomp. Inside the cavernous courtroom, the atmosphere crackled with tension. The judge, a retired trial attorney known for cracking down on procedural games, entered and took her bench. Murmurs subsided as she banged her gavel, signaling the start of the day's hearing on the contested codicil. Lawyers presented competing exhibits. On one side, typed pages purporting to reflect Clint's equal division clause. On the other, trust attorneys insisted those notes were outdated, superseded by later revisions. A forensic document examiner was sworn in, her task to determine the age of the ink and paper fibers. Every word whispered in this room could tip the scales of millions. Witness boxes flanked the judge's podium. First to testify was Eastwood's longtime personal assistant, Elena Rivera. She'd worked for him for 2 decades, handling everything from schedule changes to discreet career runs of confidential papers. Under oath, she described a late-night meeting in Clint's home office, where he held up that very codicil and said, "This is how I want my children remembered, as equals." She recounted his voice breaking when he spoke of unseen offspring, urging all to be treated fairly. As Elena's testimony concluded, Allison dabbed at her eyes, Morgan's jaw clenched, and the room held its breath. Next came the bank officer who managed Eastwood's California accounts. He explained that several trusts had poured royalties into dormant holding companies, draining funds meant for familial distributions. Questions flew: why had payments stopped? Who had authority to release funds? Under cross-examination, the officer admitted that disbursement directives were vague, requiring executor approval, a role many heirs now contested. Silence followed. The prospect of bountiful royalties frozen indefinitely cast a long shadow over family dinners and summer barbecues that Eastwood had once funded. Outside, rumor rippled through the press pool. A sealed envelope had surfaced, allegedly found in a desk drawer after Eastwood's death. It bore his scrawled signature, with a simple directive: all my children to share in my life's work. Lawyers argued over whether this envelope counted as a valid codicil or an informal note lacking witnesses. The judge ordered it submitted under seal, unread to the public, but enough to electrify speculation. Had Eastwood, in his final days, tried to write past omissions? If authentic, it could override formal trusts and reshape the estate entirely. Back in the gallery, local nonprofit leaders waited anxiously. Representatives from the Monterey Bay Aquarium and veteran centers whispered about grant deadlines and stalled conservation projects. They'd come in pinstriped suits and tailored blouses, clutching folders of mission statements. Community leaders feared that vital funding, scholarships for art students, wildlife rescue operations, would vanish into probate's black hole. An elderly curator pressed her lips together as lawyers debated whether to petition for preliminary release of charitable endowments. For these small organizations, every delayed check threatened programs years in the making. As midday approached, the judge paused proceedings to meet privately with counsel. Reporters jockeyed for position outside the courtroom doors, their digital recorders at the ready. A hush fell as lawyers emerged with steely expressions. The hearing would resume after a brief recess to authenticate the contested envelope. A trepidatious hush settled over the gallery the moment of revelation was at hand, and no one knew whether it would heal old wounds or cleave the family forever. When the judge reconvened the session, she admitted a single page from the sealed envelope into evidence. The courtroom reverberated as counsel read aloud the fading blue lines of Clint's handwriting. "Let no child of mine be set apart," the note began. "To each, I leave my love and fair share." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Some hairs reached for tissues, others sank into their seats in disbelief. Counsel on both sides locked eyes, recognizing that this simple line could render years of legal wrangling moot, or ignite fresh conflicts over interpretation of fair share. As arguments resumed, the judge directed lawyers to prepare concise briefs on whether this solitary page met California's strict codicil requirements. She scheduled a follow-up hearing in 2 weeks, a lightning-fast timeline in probate terms. The announcement triggered subdued murmurs, some siblings hugged in relief. Others stormed out with furrowed brows. Flashbulbs snapped as lawyers hustled out to brief clients, the day's interim victory tempered by the looming uncertainty of legal nuance. In the late afternoon sunshine, Eastwood's descendants spilled onto the courthouse plaza. Cameras captured Lori exchanging terse words with Allison, while Morgan and Kyle conferred quietly. Despite Elena's heartfelt testimony, disputes over executor fees and trust attorney invoices lingered. Billable hours ticked upward by the minute. Every motion threatened to drain assets. And yet, among the chaos, a fragile thread of shared memory bound them, the echo of a father whose gravitas had shaped screen legends and family life alike. For a moment, the world outside seemed to hold its breath, watching whether Clint Eastwood's last curtain call would be one of reconciliation or rupture. Under the courthouse's soaring arches, hope flickered that this handwritten note, if deemed valid, might guide them back toward unity. But as the sun set over Los Angeles, casting long shadows across the steps, one question remained unresolved: would Eastwood's final gesture of equality be enough to heal the decades of secrecy and safeguard his legacy for future generations? Only time, and the judge's ruling, would tell. News of the judge's decision to recognize Clint Eastwood's final handwritten note as a moral directive, rather than a formal codicil, swept through the legal community like wildfire. Executors emerged from chambers with instructions honor the phrase, "Let no child of mine be set apart," as a guiding principle, but maintain the existing trust structure. The unexpected ruling left hairs on edge, some hopeful for long overdue recognition, others wary that ambiguous guidance might reignite conflicts over assets once sequestered in secret trusts. Within hours, the court ordered a mediation to ensure prompt resolution. As media helicopters hovered over the Santa Monica courthouse, Kyle, Allison, Morgan, Lori, and Kimber gathered beneath the marble portico, each flanked by counsel and bracing for negotiations that could redefine their father's legacy and eager to claim justice. Negotiations began in a discreet conference suite near Wilshire Boulevard, where seasoned mediators led each sibling faction through the labyrinth of trusts and offshore holdings. Kyle, Allison, and Morgan demanded an independent audit of film royalties dating to Eastwood's earliest westerns, arguing that outdated profit-sharing agreements obscured millions in deferred payments. Lori, Kimber, and lesser-known heirs countered that such sweeping recalculations threatened to deplete core assets like the Carmel Valley Ranch and real estate. Tensions flared as legal teams sparred over valuation methods and distribution percentages. After hours of debate, mediators proposed a compromise: retain the underlying trust structure, commission a neutral appraisal firm, both emotionally and financially, and advance 10% of each heir's share from escrow. Sides agreed to present this framework to the judge before litigation resumed. Amid negotiations, Elena Rivera, Eastwood's personal assistant, was invited to provide off-the-record insights. She recounted late-night conversations in Clint's study, where he lamented mistakes that left some children unacknowledged for years. She described his voice cracking as he spoke of equal love for every offspring, urging that no hair be overlooked or undervalued. Though inadmissible legally, these recollections carried profound moral weight. Mediators and siblings alike listened with respect, many wiping away tears as they realized the inheritance battle transcended mere dollars. Elena's account reset the tone. What had begun as corporate wrangling evolved into a quest for familial healing. By reminding everyone of Clint's desire for unity, she paved the way for compromise grounded not just in legal precedent, but in a shared commitment to honor a father's final wishes. By late afternoon, the mediated proposal was ready. Executors would engage a firm to audit royalties, assets, and real estate, then disburse an interim advance of 10% to each heir. Crucially, heirs would form a permanent family council empowered to guide ongoing distributions and manage charitable grants in Clint Eastwood's name. The judge granted provisional acceptance, ordering quarterly reporting and court review only if disputes arose. As the gavel fell, tension transformed into cautious relief. Months of court motions and billable hours gave way to a path toward closure. Siblings exchanged nods, aware that final settlement still depended on detailed valuation. But for the first time, they moved beyond adversarial positions toward shared stewardship of their father's legacy, forging a framework that honored both legal structure and heartfelt intention. News outlets hailed this as a historic accord, praising the heirs' choice to collaborate instead of litigate. Fans and critics debated on social media whether such a council could endure. Hope spread that Clint's final words had inspired unity. Behind the scenes, executors tapped auditors and tax experts to inventory films, properties, and investments. Heirs used advances to pay legal fees and plan for future distributions. Council members drafted bylaws outlining meeting schedules, voting thresholds, and guidelines for philanthropy. 2 weeks later, the first interim payments were deposited, reaching heirs once left out of the estate. In a shared video call, siblings thanked each other and acknowledged past mistakes. Their reunion brief, genuinely but heartfelt, suggested that wealth divided by wills might yet be joined by bonds of fairness. As the late afternoon sun gilded the courthouse steps, Clint Eastwood's descendants faced a future uncertain and hopeful. What began as a bitter struggle over a fortune had transformed into a pact rooted in shared duty. Members of the family council planned initial charitable grants, a wildlife preservation fund in Carmel, a veterans outreach program in Los Angeles, and youth arts scholarships in rural Texas, each reflecting Clint's passions. The audit and final distribution remained pending, but the council's creation offered a mechanism for unity. In honoring a directive scrawled on a piece of notepaper, his children rediscovered new bonds no sum of money could ever sever. In reconciliation always, they proved that truest inheritance is truly measured not in dollars, but in the will to stand together when it matters most. The family council's formation marked not just the end of protracted litigation, but the beginning of a living legacy that echoed Clint Eastwood's own duality, steely independence tempered by heartfelt conviction. In the months following the mediation, meetings convened via secure video link and around rustic oak tables in Carmel. Each session opened with a moment of reflection, siblings recounting memories of Dad's warm laugh on the porch, or the hush of his directive to treat each other right. Those shared recollections became the mortar binding them across years of distance and discord. And as the council forged bylaws for distribution, it also wove a tapestry of reconciliation. For the first quarter, the interim advances funded projects as diverse as Clint's filmography. The Monterey Bay Aquarium unveiled a new touch tank for rehabilitating sea otters, bearing a plaque that read, "In honor of Clint Eastwood's compassion." In Eastwood's hometown of Carmel, an outdoor amphitheater was dedicated to youth drama workshops, complete with rustic benches that mirrored the simplicity of his early sets. And in Los Angeles, a veterans support center opened its doors with funding for counseling programs, a nod to the director's myriad cinematic tributes to military valor. Behind the scenes, council members balanced legal nuance with personal commitment. Allison, once the fiercest litigator, surprised everyone by championing an annual family retreat at the ranch, an opportunity to swap courtroom attire for ranch boots and to remember the man who had loved wide, open spaces. Laurie and Kimber, once marginalized in trust documents, found purpose chairing the philanthropy subcommittee, channeling their energy into hands-on community work. Even distant heirs, those once unknown or unacknowledged, felt included, invited to summer workshops and holiday celebrations that celebrated Eastwood's far-reaching family. Yet the council did not shy away from the complexities that remained. A task force audited residual royalties from Malpaso Productions, navigating decades-old distribution deals and reshaping them for the streaming age. Rather than hoarding profits, the council reinvested a portion of earnings into a rotating grant for independent filmmakers, echoing Clint's own spirit of nurturing emerging talent. This initiative, dubbed the Eastwood Echo Fund, offered seed money, mentorship from seasoned crew members, and a chance for up-and-comers to debut at local festivals. The very industry that once debated ownership now witnessed a fresh chapter of collaboration. Meanwhile, Hares found personal healing in shared purpose. Morgan spearheaded a mental health campaign, hosting panel discussions on grief, inheritance stress, and the unique burdens of celebrity offspring. Kyle launched a wildlife corridor conservation project on ranchlands that had been overlooked in initial trust drafts. In place of courtroom battles, siblings now negotiated budgets for riverbank restoration and scholarship awards. Their conversations, once laden with legal jargon, transformed into strategic planning sessions for community impact. As the council approached its first anniversary, they unveiled audited figures at a public ceremony, generosity measured in dollars, but more importantly in stories of lives touched. A veteran recovering from trauma spoke about finding solace in group therapy funded by the estate. A young filmmaker accepted his debut grant, tears in his eyes as he thanked Eastwood's family for believing in untold stories. And surfacing from the ocean's depths, a rescued otter named Clint Jinger served as a living emblem of what compassion and collaboration could achieve. Amid these successes, the original trusts remained intact, guided by the spirit of that scrawled note, "Let no child of mine be set apart." The legal framework provided structure, the council's intent infused it with humanity. In quiet moments, siblings would find themselves on the ranch's hillside at sunset, recalling their father's love of solitude and reflection. They felt him there, in the wind through the oaks, in the vast Pacific horizon he so often admired, in the legacy they now stewarded together. The media, once primed for scandal, pivoted its narrative. Headlines shifted from "Eastwood Clan Divided" to "Family Unites for Community Impact." Features in lifestyle magazines celebrated Eastwood's heirs as changemakers, honoring a patriarch whose final act of ambiguity had become a unifying call to action. Social media buzzed with gratitude. Fans shared videos of grant-funded theater performances, otter rehabilitation sessions, and restored ranch trails open for public enjoyment. The Eastwood Legacy campaign trended as people posted images of progress, from sparkling aquarium tanks to green pastures that had once teetered on neglect. In the end, Clint Eastwood's empire transcended box office tallies and bank accounts. His wealth, once a source of conflict, was refashioned into shared stewardship, proof that even a fortune amassed in solitude could galvanize collective purpose. Siblings who once confronted one another in court now collaborated to honor the man whose films championed resilience, justice, and redemption. They discovered that the greatest inheritance was not the sum of dollars, but the spirit of unity they cultivated. And so, as the council gathered under the broad California sky for their anniversary, a gentle breeze carried the whisper of Eastwood's guiding voice: "Do right by each other." In those simple words lay the final, indelible tribute, a testament to a legacy that flourished not in isolation, but in the shared commitment of those he called family.